Welcome back to another episode of the Minds with Hakeem podcast. My name is Jjuan Hakeem, your host. I thank you guys for tuning in to this episode today. This is a special solo episode where I'm going to aim to decipher some information that I've learned and go over a book, and you're going to learn the title of that book, or you've probably already heard about this book. It's called The Anxious Generation by Jonathan. I believe his last name is pronounced Haidt or something like that. It's a really good book. I really didn't think I would learn anything from this book because I was already privy to this information post-pandemic and just starting to dive in and see how it's shaping our lives and how anxiety has risen in our culture. But I had a lot of takeaways, and I want to share them with you guys today in this quick solo episode. So again, thank you guys for being here. And before we jump into the anxious generation, I do want to mention that this podcast is separate to my work that I do with Change Course. And yeah, let's get to it. So I do want to just say before I get into like small things about the anxious generation and stuff like that, there's going to be a lot of things that we see differently. And I open that and I actually encourage that. You can email me at info@jjuanhakeem.com, or you can obviously go on the website, jjuanhakeem.com, and leave a message. I'll be sure to get back with you on that. And most importantly, if you have me on any social media networks, I would love to have a deeper conversation about this. I think we learn and grow together. But as we jump in, this is some, how do I like to put it? This is some scary stuff about anxiety, excuse me, and just the anxiousness in our generation today. And you've seen it, whether you've seen it in your own personal life, whether you've seen it in your children's life, whether you've seen it in your auntie, your uncle, your niece's nephew, your family, your friends, some form of fashion. You've seen anxiety existing, and you've seen mental health crisis on the rise here in this country. Mental health and therapists their doors are full. And I know plenty of them, and they tell me their doors are full, which kudos to them for doing the hard work when we get there. But this is going to focus on a lot of stuff to kind of prevent and mitigate our anxiety. And I am not a mental health therapist. I'm just a person who has his own thoughts and also like to listen to thoughts of others. Clearly, I'm breaking down somebody else's thoughts today, so I do not aim or try or claim to be a mental health therapist. So all this information, if you have real or limited pushback, talk to a professional, not me, but we can have dialogue about it. I would love to. So again, welcome. So I'll introduce the author a little bit about him. He had another book, Jonathan Haidt. He wrote another book, and I heard this was the follow-up to it. I haven't read it. It's called The Coloring of the American Mind. And a lot of my friends, and I've heard good things about this book, but this is probably, I think, his third or fourth book. I probably should have known that before I dove into this, but he's got some pretty strong and impactful books. And I just want to share too, and I kind of shared a little bit that, what we're going to talk about today, it means something to me because not only where we play and where our family exists and where we work, this is all around. So this topic is extremely important to me in regards of protecting our mental health and protecting our children and things that we can do, because mostly the concept of this book, it covers what our kids are going through, and it'll talk about a big like spike period around 2010 and 2012. And I can remember not really wanting a phone, and my sister and my mom encouraging me to get a phone just because they need to know where I'm at. But I remember having a play-based childhood. So the two different themes of this book is going to talk about a lot is play-based childhood, which is the cutoff in the book to start was 1995, and I was born in 1994, or online or phone-based childhood, where these kids are being raised by YouTube and different other media giants that they're spending most of their time on, and they're not playing outside, and they don't have an outside-based childhood. So, and sticking with that, I do want to mention yesterday on my way home, I had to slow down and stop It was 3 kids, probably all under the age of 7 or 8 for sure, playing in the street like a badminton game or something like that. And as I stopped to let them get out of the street before I passed through, my heart was full of joy to see that, because we can always focus on the negative and focus on, oh, everybody's on their phone. But for me to see 3 young boys in my neighborhood playing outside is a win for me. So do want to start that off with that. So the core argument of this book is the rise of phone-based childhood, and I told you about those 2 different terms. Smartphones, especially social media, has replaced outside play, in-person play, interactions between kids, and that's just a fact. And this book is like a research paper, so if you're not a huge reader, this episode is for you. If you are a reader, you might enjoy the content of this book. It's a lot of stats, it's a lot of studies and things like that to back up this claim that, hey, these phones are actually hindering us in a lot of ways, and we need to actually talk about it. So I actually talked to I talked to a few men in my book club we did this book for book club, and some of the takeaways that they took was right in line, because I was actually like, I think we all might disagree on this stuff, and there was disagreement, which I think there's growth in that. But man, the way we saw, like, the way these phones is taking over, because some of these guys in the group, they always had smartphones around them since birth, since the day they were born in. For some of the guys in the group, like myself, I remember pagers. I remember flip phones. I remember being at payphones, not making calls, but just with my parents at a payphone and stuff like that too. So it's a lot different for me in my perspective and how I see it. But what I do know and what I do cherish is playing outside with my friends. And, one big thing the book kind of talks about is like selection. And it's like kids don't understand how it feels today to not like get picked or to get picked last when you're playing a sport. I knew when we was playing basketball, and if I wasn't the captain, I was going to be top 3 pick every time. If we was playing football, I probably was going to be the last pick. And I did feel some type of way about it, but that's good. And we try to hide our kids from that today. No, not that we try to. What we're doing is we're depriving our kids of living in that today by being in the online based childhood. But some few key differences that I thought a play-based childhood gives you is freedom, risk, and real-time feedback. You got time to live in the moment and kind of understand, oh, this is actually affecting me, or how this situation is going, and you got a chance to play that feedback loop in your head right there amongst your peers. And some differences in the phone-based childhood is isolation, curated personas, and astronomical feedback. So you getting feedback on a global aspect instead of from the 6 people that you're playing with. You getting feedback from millions and billions of folks. And also, I do want to point out too, just because we live in such a comparison world on social media now, getting a lack of attention or a small amount of likes, whatever you may deem it as, is feedback. It's not good feedback. It's not what you want to see. So even if like somebody don't have a huge platform but they want that, and they see people are not engaging or not doing things like that, that's feedback to them that they internalize and they think is real. So those are some key things to look at. He also connects the shift to the spike in anxiety, depression, and self-harm, especially among teen girls. This was the one thing that I thought I knew. I'm not going to say I thought I knew. I thought I knew everything about what online and phone-based education and upbringing is giving us. This was the one thing that screamed out to me was the impact and the effect it have on girls. I'll go into more details, but one thing I do want to say first and foremost is girls are just so much more meaner when it comes to social media and when it comes to like bullying and different forms of fashion and that. I'm not saying social media is all places to be mean. That's not what I'm saying. But what I learned and I learned something about guys too I'll get into, but what I learned about girls is, and this is a story from some of our friends here. A member of their family was like a part of this group of gals and on Snapchat. And what these girls did was they planned a secret party behind her back with all the gals in this group chat but her. And when they got to the sleepover secret party or whatever, they all started sending her snaps. Isn't this so cool? We planned a party, you wasn't here. Just making her feel bad, making her feel uninvited or unaccepted into the group. And when they told me that, I got so angry in my mind because I understand that these are young and probably good kids. Like, everybody in their family, everybody who interact with them would deem they're good kids. But, like, it just creates these environments for kids to be so cruel and so mean to each other. And the way girls use those tools, because, like, as a guy, I can't fathom doing that to another man. Like, I just, or another boy, should I say, when I was a boy. But obviously I didn't have social media, so I do want to be mindful of that. I wasn't 11 years old with the ability to get on Snapchat, too. So I don't have any recollection of that, of how I would get there. But it's just like, wow, just like things like that that's really happening in real time kind of blew my mind when I learned about just the impact it had on girls. Because in the book, he did kind of break down girls and boys in different ways and also the totality of what's affecting each of them. So excessive screen time, fragmented attentions, shortening focus and attention span. This is one you can struggle with at all ages. It doesn't matter what age you are. That scroll of a TikTok or Instagram, that your brain is trying to process all of these different huge buckets of information in the information age, and our attention spans are the the one who has to take the loss, should I say, for those. And it also, what stems to this problem in actuality is a fear-based parenting and a culture of overprotection has compounded the problem. Here's what I mean by that. And here's what the book, I think, was implying by that. And because the book started off with an introduction, just really good introduction about sending yourself to Mars, sending your kids to, you would never send your kids to Mars. And essentially with the smartphones and letting them be in their rooms all day and on these smartphones and letting these boys play these video games extended plus hours a day is essentially sending them to Mars. Because you know they're in your basement or they're in their bedroom and they're safe, but you have no idea what information and what context that they're viewing these things in light. But we think they're protected because they're right there. So if we allow them to go out and take a walk or go play outside, we always panic and like where they're at. Even though today we're more safer than we ever been when it comes to like kidnapping and kids fighting or bullying in person. Like all of that stuff is starting to slowly go away. Now I'm not saying there aren't cases where kidnapping does happen, but I also read a spinoff book to this called Free Range Kids, where she, the author of that book, she wanted to, she just liked to empower her kids to do things on their own, and the world thought she was crazy about it. And this was in 2009, 2010 era or something like that. I have to fact check that. But, yeah, so she like was on the news for being a bad parent and this, that, and the third because she let her 9-year-old son, I think, ride the subway train home. He knew the route. He had a way to call her. He had a note in his pocket with his mom number on it and stuff like that. But people thought that was weird. And then I look back into my childhood and I'm like, how does that differ? Well, my sister is 1 year older than me. And me and my sister used to know how to cook meals early, and my sister more than me. She basically kind of fed me while mom worked a little bit. But with that being said, my sister was 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, making these decisions. And now today, we won't even let a 13-year-old hold a knife. And I say that as an extreme example, but it's just like today we try to coddle our kids, which I really think the coddling of the American mind would have been good for me to tap into before this episode. But we want to coddle our children so much and keep them within our grips. And when they go out into the real world, they just explode, or they have no idea how they exist because they have been coddled so long. But that overprotection and helicopter parenting is a huge problem to why we want to keep them in the fold and not have them go out and venture on. All right. My third talking point is this is kind of what the research shows from the book. Mental health issues surged starting around 2012, most severely among Gen Z girls. I had no idea how much more girls compare themselves to other women on the internet until I read this book. I knew comparison, it works for both genders. But the impact comparison have on girls blew me away. Correlation between screen time and anxiety and depression is strongest for social media use. Instagram and TikTok are the worst two of this. Boys also affected, but in different ways, often through video games, isolation, and lack of real-world challenge. I could spend 2 hours talking about the impact on boys. I do want to talk about one example because I was a gamer when I was coming up. I played the video game a lot. The difference between and the problem that these video games is having on our young boys that nobody really want to talk about and address is that there's truly no pause button. Now, when I say no pause button, you're probably like, what you mean? So, when I was younger, my mom bought me a video game and I would play with my friends side by side, not online, which I think some of those spaces are good, but side by side. If my mom came home with the groceries and me and John Smith are playing NBA 2K, we have the ability to press pause, help mom unload the groceries, get stuff put away, go back to the game, sit down, press play. That doesn't exist on most of these games anymore. When you're on Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Warzone, you can't press pause, especially if you're the last man alive and your mom just pulled up with the groceries and Timmy needs to go help mom get the groceries. It ain't no pause button. It ain't no pause button. So it's most likely the mom is either going to bring the groceries in or have a yell at you about it or not address it and just let this be the norm, which is most likely what's going to happen is that this is just going to be boys can't be boys. And that's just one small example of our video games. The history and the statistics are way worse than not being able to help your mom or your family or anybody in need because you can't press pause and you ain't getting off your game. So, and sticking with that theme of the data, the gender divide, girls tend to internalize stress and anxiety and depression way more than guys. Boys externalize or withdraw gaming, lack of motivation, keeps, I'll just call it a spade. That's why we have a lot of 20, 30, 40, 50, 60-year-old men who still act like little boys. And I know real men who play the video game. So I'm not saying video game make you act like a little boy. I'm saying extended gaming leads to lack of motivation and lack of maturity, most importantly. You can still play the game and be a man 100%. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a balance in everything that we do. So social comparison and cyberbullying is disproportionately affects girls. This was one of the things I talked about earlier. Blew me away how mean girls are on there. So, if you have a daughter, the worst app you can let her have is Snapchat. If you have a daughter, the worst app you can let her have is Snapchat. And I'll caveat that with saying is, don't let your son or daughter get on social media until they're after at least 16. A minimum of 16. And have some restrictions around it. And I'll go over that. A lot of takeaways that he offered, but I'll go over some things that I think will work too, as far as not sharing and stuff like that. But yeah, if you have a daughter, Snapchat is it's just absolutely no need. If you want to talk to your friends, talk to your friends. All right. So what can we do? What can we do to move forward? I hate when books give a problem and don't have a resolution. And I think Jonathan and his team worked really hard on some things that we can do. Here's what he suggests. Excuse me. And then I'll also talk about some of the things that I suggest, I think would be helpful. Delaying smartphone access. Haidt advocates for no smartphones before high school. I echo that. Encourage more free play, especially outdoors and unsupervised. This one is really important. Unsupervised outdoor play is essential. Your kids get to learn some things and be around some pockets and situations that they weren't exposed to before. You need to let go a little and find the right age for that, of course. Teach real-life coping skills, conflict resolution, failure recovery, risk-taking. This is something we do at my job. It's called personal development. Teach that inside the household. Character building things, understanding how to take a loss. I think we have opportunities we can do that with our children, but we shy away from it, or we don't make ourselves available because not only are they on the phone in the game, but we are as well. Schools should also rethink phone policies. Many schools have gone phone free with success. I know Des Moines Public School has made some changes in this. It's going to be a phone free school. There's going to come up with situations where they can put the phones in. I don't really know the meat, nuts and bolts of that, but school needs to be a house of learning, a place of learning, and not an extended place where you can go and be on social media and be amongst real people, but zoned into your screen. So what else I had? Oh, he also suggested that, and this is where I got it from actually, to no social media till 16, and more free play. This isn't. So one thing's for sure, and I talk about this with all my friends, and now I'm talking about this with everyone. This should not just be an individual choice. Yes, you should have individual choices and norms you stick to in your household, but this has to be, Jonathan over expresses that this has to be a community. That's why he focuses on schools. That's why he focuses on community. Local churches should be participating in activities to get the kids playing amongst each other. If we can't trust our Christian kids to play along, what are we doing? Like without phones, without helicoptering over and trying to run the games. We need to be able to let go and let these kids kind of figure this out and decipher the pecking order, because we know in the real world there will be an order. In every culture, every job you work at, there will be an order. So that's another big thing, is do it in the community. So I encourage the individual who listen to this, who is saying, amen, brother, to everything that this book entailed. Talk to your friends about it. And don't force it down their throats, but just have a conversation. Some of my buddies actually brought some of this conversation to me before I even picked up this book. But just having an open conversation, expressing these things to your friend, maybe y'all can build a tribe and go out and show and teach others that things that y'all doing. Parents, schools, and even tech companies must shift norms. So, not just focusing on the individual again. Talk about the courage it takes to be the first in the peer group to push back on the phone culture and the power of doing it together. So, that's kind of just entails exactly what I was saying. So, I just want to revisit some key things before I close out here. I do appreciate y'all being attentive to this information. But this generation anxiety is not a mystery. There's a cause and there's also a path forward. Now, the path forward seems really steep. I will agree. But we have to keep putting one foot in front of the other if we want to kind of shape and hold what we have here and kind of sustain it. Also, those stories, please get your personal stories. I would love to interact or do a short review with you if you have a story like I shared about my friends in the Snapchat where they casted her out and blackballed her out. But those stories need to be expanded and highlighted not only on social media but amongst your personnel, the people that you interact with. That story I told about my friend's family member, I've told that to mostly everybody that's close to me, because I just can't believe it, how mean these good 11-year-old, 12-year-old girls are, but would do something like that because they're allowed to on social media, unsupervised. And also would love just to have more open dialogue with you guys about this information. So like I said at the beginning of the episode, please email me at info@jjuanhakeem.com. And also you can message me on the website too at jjuanhakeem.com. I will get your message and respond to you as soon as possible. If you love to share a story with me that I can share on the podcast, media accounts to kind of get the word out to parents, because I believe this information is so important to parents right now who are having kids or raising kids right now and making these decisions. These are the people who we hold an interesting place in this, because especially the ones who know what life was like before social media. We hold an interesting space in here because, we need to do better. I know I'm not the only one concerned about the rate of anxiety in my culture, in my world, in my sphere of friends, families, and my local church. Even, I'm looking for more advocates in this process as Des Moines kind of shifts to this with the public school going, no phones. And I heard a lot of pushback from parents on the no phone thing when it comes to school. But a lot of this is an education issue. So, and I don't mean a remedial education issue. It's just a lot of people are not privy to this information, or not privy to what the tech companies are doing. Tristan Harris from The Social Dilemma once shared, I think he shared it on, no, this was a random podcast I was listening to of his. He was like, the way that they got people to stop smoking cigarettes was they did an ad to where the cigarette company owners were seeing how they were going to manipulate and use people to do this tobacco, and how it's going to kill them and harm them, and how they're going to all get rich from it. And I'm not saying the tech, no, yes, I am. Let me take that back. The tech companies are manipulating you. They are harming you, not by intent, but they know it's harming you. And I suggest you look up research on the Facebook whistleblower and the things that she exposed that goes on in the I'm thinking about babies, because they was using kids in the literal board meetings to kind of see how to exploit children. But you should look up literature on the Facebook whistleblower, and I think you'll be blown away about how they plan and plot. And it's not by accident, it's by design. So thank you guys for tuning in to the solo episode. I hope this was informal. I don't want to fear. That's why I wanted to end like Jonathan did, on a high note, with things that we can do to move forward, because I believe in the human race. And yeah, so The Anxious Generation, everybody. Really good book. Really scary things in here. I was kind of starting to get depressed while reading it, but I feel like this is important. So thank you guys so much. Hope you have a good day. Peace.